Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. We'll wait a couple of minutes more for a few folks to join us, and we'll kick it right off. Thank you.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes. Great. We'll just wait a couple more minutes for folks to join, and we'll start.
Gotcha.
Okay, we'll kick it. Hi, everybody. My name is Samer Kamal. I'm the VP of Marketing at Mine. And today we'll be talking all about data mapping. I have very couple of special guests with me today. Our Customer Success VP, Daniel Goldfeld. Hi, Danny.
Hi, Summer. Hi, everybody. Hello to our customers that are on the call. It's a pleasure to see a lot of you. So thank you for taking the time.
Very good. And we have a very, very special guest that I cannot think of anybody else that can dive as deep and talk about data mapping all day long. With us today is Taufiq Azam from Data.AI. Hi, Taufiq.
Hi, how are you? Hi, everybody.
Great, very good. Thank you for joining us today.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Great. So today, talk about the agenda a little bit. And so we'll talk about, Taufiq's journey at Data.AI, a little bit, how do they use MineOS, the journey that they went through building their data privacy program. We'll really dive deep and talk about practical advice and state that, Data.AI has gone throughout that whole process. So we'll get, some of the challenges that they've had, how they ran it before implementing MineOS, and how things are going, now. And talk about the stakeholders, the folks that that Taufiq had to work with as they built data privacy. And we'll talk about from Danny. Danny speaks with customers all day long throughout his career, and I think it will be very beneficial to hear from him and some of the advice and some of the trends and shifts that he's seeing as the company is growing. Definitely feel free to drop your questions. This is a conversation that we'd like to have. We'll see, your questions as they come through, and we'll take them as they come in. Yeah, let's kick it off. Taufiq, actually, before we really jump into it, I wanted to make sure everybody is familiar with Mine. We're a 4-year-old company now, can't believe it. And really, from day one, we've been focused on building an enterprise-grade data privacy platform that caters, to companies from all kinds of, back industries and sizes, from small companies to Global 2000. We're backed by incredible investors that have been through us from day one, and we continue to grow. We've seen incredible shifts and growth, for the last few months, and this year has been incredible. With data privacy becoming more and more of a critical issue, we're seeing, our capabilities and platform grow very quickly and becoming a priority from customers. Yeah, let's kick it off. So talk to a little bit about us. I wanted to also show off some of our customers and the fact that we are a leader as a data privacy platform, as a customer rated reviews, and how folks talks about us. We're very proud of some of the reviews that we've gotten, and we've already became a leader, as you can see us all the way to the right, on the data privacy category in G2. Very proud about that. And actually, a couple of months ago, we became one of the top 100 all in every category that G2 categorizes as a top software platform there. Very humbled and very thankful to our customers to achieve all of this. with that, Tawfiq, let's dig in. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about, Data AI. The name of the company, Data AI. It cannot be more trending and more important. These two, phrases are something that we hear about all the time. So, we'd love to hear, what you guys do, and specifically what you have been doing, throughout your career with Data AI, please.
So to understand what Data AI does, it's important to understand our target customer, which is companies that create mobile applications. We provide a platform that provides market-based estimations and analytics for mobile applications across the Google Play and Apple app stores. We have a few different products. Intelligence is our biggest one, and it uses an algorithm and gives you metrics and uses statistics of your applications. You could track your growth opportunities across countries and categories. You could track your market share, do performance trends, and even more importantly, you could do competitor analysis. We have more than just that, but our business is basically just data. We get data, we use AI to aggregate it and put it into a usable format for our clients in our dashboard. And then you would be the one making decisions based on that. So what I've done at Data AI is I'm actually in charge of the vendor due diligence program. So I've built that out. I have worked and done risk assessments. I have done management reviews pertaining to certifications that we get. But Data AI really is a compliance first organization. And management has drilled this down into every facet of Data AI. And as such, we need adequate tools to fulfill legislative requirements. Now, because of the industry we're in, because of the product that we provide, there are a lot of different privacy legislation coming out that affect us. So I would say that the gold standard for that is GDPR, and that's another big responsibility of mine. I have to basically go through and map out how our data is collected, the point of collection, how it flows to our systems, and where it's stored. And that's the big requirement for GDPR.
Yeah, great. And that sounds like a lot of responsibilities and more things on your plate. Building a data privacy program takes a lot. And, I know you've become, a MineOS customer for a while now. Talk us through that journey. Maybe we can start off how you guys were doing things before implementing the platform. Really, how was that process, please, Tawfiq?
So we were using a different tool to manage our data subject access requests procedure. And all that really is if someone wants you to, if someone wants to know what data resides on your system, or if someone wants to say, hey, forget me, and delete their data, you are responsible for doing that. Now, it wasn't a true form of automation before. What happened was it was a workflow automation thing. So basically, they would send you a request, and you would have multiple places where we would have like a request intake. We'd have a form. We would have we'd scan our email mailbox just manually, and then we would go in and we would put either create requests in the tool, or sometimes it would just populate there. So it was a lot to manage, just the intake portion of it. Then what we would have to do is we'd have to execute those requests. And every time we were executing those requests, again, pretty manual, you would go in and then you would click, okay, well, it's gotten to this stage. Now it goes to this person to delete it. Now it goes to this person. And then it would always depend on someone actioning the item. So it wasn't true automation. It was workflow automation. And again, as you can see with those bullet points, manual, time consuming, fragmented. So there were a lot of issues that we had with the other tool. And then when we implemented mine, it's actually true one-click automation. We get the requests in. We don't have to scan all of these different intake forms and everything. Comes into the queue. We go in, we review the request, and we execute it. It's very simple. So with data subject access requests, that's what really, just automating that really helped. And before we were using data mapping. We were using their data mapping module. However, it was, again, really manual. To do data mapping, you have to have a few things in place. So like you need to have a list of processing activities broken out. You need to have, you need to, for many mature or mid, I don't want to say mature, but like on the cusp of maturity, they have their critical processing activities done via business impact analysis. So we would have to document those, put them in manually, get a list of all our vendors and data sources, and put that all in manually, and then really try to manage different things. Like we'd have to export things out into Excel. We'd have to create reports from those Excel reports into Visio. And it was just we wouldn't have a one place where we would have everything. Mine brought it all into the system the way that they do it. We've automated a lot of the data discovery, which Danny will talk about later. We have a place where we could show those data maps to a regulator if they were to come in, and it's just it's just an automated process that saved us a lot of time. So that's the value we've gotten with mine.
Yeah, that's great to hear. That's great to hear. Thank you. And you mentioned a great point. Automation, workflow automation doesn't really equal true automation. That's something that we feel very proud about, and we try to really enforce using latest technologies that helps you eliminate some of these manual tasks and collaboration, as you mentioned, collecting things from different places and bringing them into the platform. Maybe we can dive a little bit deeper. Tell me please about the stakeholders and the approach that you guys at Data.AI take about when it comes to data mapping. How do you guys think about that approach generally first?
So we like to partner with our stakeholders. What we do is we've aggregated everything together, and we come to our stakeholders with a process, saying this is what the process is, and this is how we evaluated it so far. This is how we've mapped things out. Are these the correct systems? Are these the correct PII elements? And when you partner with them, rather than being seen as like like the police, if you will. They'll basically that's when you actually that's when really good things start to happen. So we've done that, and we also use just basic project management tactics to break them down by functional area. Like you'll have finance and all the processing activities that hit finance. You'll have human resources and all that, and we'll aggregate it into different points and manage it that way. And if you're organized, you get through this stuff faster, and your people are engaged. It's really easy. Plus, with mine, you can show them everything in one spot. And I'm going back to the one spot again because that's really what really brought us a lot of value, and it just gives them a clear picture of everything. So
yeah, great. So with so many stakeholders and people involved, and really, as you said, not coming as the police, if you will, how do you ensure that it's a priority on everybody's minds?
Well, it's a regulatory requirement, and sometimes you would have to, in certain cases, you will have to tie them into KPIs if that were the case, right? But it's not. We haven't done that yet. But basically, at my organization, it's just once you partner with them, people just they'll give you everything. They'll help you out. So we haven't tied it to that yet, but that would be the next step if people weren't responsive.
Yeah. Do you get to involve upper management, if you will? How high, if you will, do you ensure that you escalate, and make your data privacy program, on everybody's dashboards?
So what I should have started with was it's a top-down level. It's top-down management. You basically go to the top, the leaders in your organization, and then again, as Data.AI is a compliance-first organization, it flows down into every unit. So basically, everybody knows about data mapping at Data.AI. They all know it's a priority. They all are aware of it, and that's actually what drives the value for it. So.
Yeah, very important. Danny, I know you speak to customers, throughout your whole day. How would you agree, and what are the type of discussions that you have to ensure that people, use this thing and make sure that things don't cumulatively, come on at the end of the month when, an audit is a requirement? What would you say are, good practices to ensure this thing continues to be a priority and you have a fluid data privacy program?
I think that's a great question. I think Taufiq touched on a lot of the pain points that we hear from a lot of companies. I think the privacy program usually tends to be sort of a one-time effort, or at least one time a year effort, where you try to map the data sources that are being used today. Then you wait for a year, then you start from scratch again. This, of course, affects with some companies, the willingness of different teams to be able to sort of help you, because it's not part of the culture eventually, right? It's just some kind of an effort that suddenly comes. You need to address something. You have other tasks that you need to do, and it's become challenging to sort of chase everybody. So I think AI's approach, first of all, of sort of top down management is very important. Management has to be involved, and I completely agree. But I think the ability to sort of make it an ongoing program that is constantly updated by the new data sources that are being found, by the new processing activities that might be relevant for the teams, and not sort of doing this as a heavy lifting once a year when you need to involve a lot of different resources and a lot of different effort from a lot of different teams, definitely helps. Because if it's just a small task you need to do once a week, once a month, it's much easier to involve the team and involve the relevant stakeholders within those different teams and different business functions, rather than sort of make it a project, get the resources allocated, plan it, and then it becomes something that you really sort of need to chase.
Yeah, makes sense. Thanks, Danny. Tawfiq, you guys are a very big organization at this point, and data, you deal with different types of data.
Mhm.
Can you walk us through, like, how do you go about, a deeper, like the integrations and the applications that you have? How do you go about ensuring you have as much coverage as possible?
So it really depends, but basically, before we did it manually. Now, what you could do is use the data radar with Mine, and it'll scan everything. If it doesn't have an integration, you can create custom tools in Mine and map those out. But basically, that data radar tool is pretty comprehensive. So like you can scan, I believe, Danny, if I'm correct, you could scan your SSO tool. You could scan, you could use it to scan your email. You could use it to scan your website, and it's very comprehensive. So it'll also give you a picture of like things that are that you might not be aware about, like shadow IT, for example. So like that's what you would use, in my opinion. But yeah.
Yeah, very good. Speaking of, maybe Danny, if you could maybe walk us through the platform and get everybody on the same page in terms of everything that we provide.
Yeah, definitely. MineOS, basically what we address the three pillars of the privacy pillars, right? That's how we call them. We got the consent management, which is the cookie banner, and basically the ability to opt in or opt out from cookies. We definitely manage this for customers. It's a small offering that we have. We also do the DSR handling, which Taufiq mentioned, and this is the intake channels, the full automation of the different DSR handling, workflows, and such. But I think the main feature that we have, and what we're basically discussing today, is our data mapping feature. And with the data mapping feature, basically what we're trying to do is the living and breathing privacy program that I mentioned before. We're actually providing privacy teams and privacy specialists within the organization the ability to constantly scan the data sources that they use within the organization, map their data source inventory, the data types, the processing activities. And because it's a living and breathing plan that is a program that is all constantly working, this means that basically you have an up-to-date compliance deliverables, be it the ROPA reports or just the mapping that you need to have for potential customers. And that you can export at any point in time, or that you can update in any point in time. So we're trying to create sort of a one-stop shop for the data mapping activities. And by building this foundation that I've just mentioned, it gives you also the ability to sort of extend your privacy program without investing additional resources. You can now start evaluating the risk because now you have full visibility into everything that the company does. You have the ability to build your DPIAs and mitigation plans. You have the ability to map your data transfer and data flows directly from the platform because you have all of the information and everything was already identified by the system. You can also focus on data minimization and make sure that you're only moving the right data types through the different processors that you have within the company, and you don't move data around just because they ask for it, but there is actually a business need and a legal basis for what you're doing, and transfer mechanisms in place, as well as just cost reduction, because once you have the full picture of understanding what you're using within the organization, which employees are using it, why are you using this tool, you can then identify different tools that might not be that needed in the current sort of in the current business atmosphere of the company, or the custom or the business need, which can actually also help you and reduce cost and minimize your expenditure.
Yeah, great. Thank you. You touched on discovery, and I know Taufiq did before. We think it's a fundamental step that is highly important for all these other pillars on top of it to be successful. Walk us through, Taufiq talked about all these different methods or multi-pronged method that can get us as much coverage as possible to all the data at the organization. What are some of these methods, please?
Sorry for that, I was muted. So Taufiq touched on this, and I think it's a very important and very exciting part of our product. So Taufiq mentioned the SSO discovery that we have in the website scan, but I think the idea is that we actually provide a multi-layer discovery and scanning option, because if you're only focusing on sort of the SSO discovery or the website scan, you will probably identify the data sources that are used by the organization. However, most of those data sources you already know, because they were approved by the company, they were added into your identity provider, they're being managed by the IT team. However, usually with a lot of different companies, this is not the only data sources that are being used within the organization. There's a lot of different data sources that are being used by different teams and different individuals just because they wanted to use this. It can be a note-taking solution where they put their own notes from a sales call, including PII. It could be just a POC that they ran at some point with a certain tool, but they forgot to delete the PII from that tool. So what we offer is actually the multi-layer scanning and discovery, where we have the ability to scan the email domain of a company without actually looking into the emails themselves. So we're not looking into the content of the email, but we are able to identify different interactions between the employees and different data sources. By doing that, we're actually creating what we call a digital footprint for the organization, where we can actually show the different data sources that were used by employees within the organization. By seeing this picture, the privacy specialists, the GCs of the world, and even the IT directors of every company now have the ability to identify their actual inventory and tech stack. They can see the different tools that are being approved, that were approved by the company with our SSO discovery and website scanning and cloud provider scanning. However, they can also identify the shadow IT, and they can identify those different data sources that they were not aware of because somebody just decided to do something within the organization or just forgot to mention or to approve it with the IT department. On top of that, with our cloud provider scanning, we also have, and discovery, we also have the ability to identify different tools that are being used by within your cloud providers. So for example, if you're doing AWS, identify different services within AWS that store PII, like Redshift, right? Your EC2s and other services that might be relevant, and of course the S3 buckets. So different services that might hold PII and you use within the organization, and same goes for Azure and GCP. Also, as part of the cloud provider scanning, we also have the ability to identify the regions where you store the data. And this is very important, as probably you know, for your data flow mapping and transfer mechanisms that you need to show as part of your as part of the regulation requirements and your compliance and privacy program. So all of those 4 different discovery modes that we have is actually providing you almost a full coverage of everything that you do within the organization. It gives you the ability to actually get this information without involving anybody and just getting this map even before you start the program, right? Before you start your privacy program, and actually coming with a sort of a more educated approach where you don't need to do those Excel spreadsheets that Taufiq mentioned and those questionnaires and interviews that are probably coming at the beginning of every privacy program when you need to map those different data sources and even understand what's the scope of what you're going to do.
Thanks, Danny. And it sounds to me that multiple methods, different types of data, their locations, different type of applications, but there is always a recommended approach and a best approach to handling that type of data. You mentioned email discovery. That is something that is highly unique. While we provide the standard ways that the industry have gotten used to, this is something that's highly unique. I'd love to ask Taufiq, email discovery, how reliable or how much do you use this feature?
We've used it, and Danny's right. That's actually the most important one that I forgot to mention. But yeah, that's the one that actually gave us that big comprehensive list, and that's why we're not having so many issues when we go to our stakeholders, because we already have everything laid out for them. So as Danny said, like it really did help us a lot, and it automated just the automated discovery was a big boon for us. So yeah, it's comprehensive and it's very accurate.
That's great to hear. Thanks, Tawfiq. It sounds like, yeah, our method, if I could, Danny, put it in a way where we're simplifying and we're letting, the business and the compliance folks, take a lot of these tasks and alleviating IT from this. And this has been a trend, we see in technology, giving the business more and more power and letting IT focus on maybe more complicated steps. You speak to customers all the time. Is this, how do you see this trend really play out in our category?
I think there's definitely a trend, first of all, before we'll touch on the next slide. And I think it's a very important challenge for a company, right? Because we see a lot of companies that don't even have a solution in place, right? They're building their privacy program around Excel spreadsheets and around, talking to different stakeholders within the organization. This is a very manual process. It's very heavy. It requires a lot of resources. It requires a lot of help from other teams that have other priorities. And basically what it results in is a very partial privacy program and a very partial data mapping eventually, right? Which basically puts a company under risk because you don't really know where you store your PII. You don't really know if those tools are actually secure enough, if they're compliant enough, and if you need to use them at all, right? Those are questions. Do you have a DPA with those vendors, right? Those are very important questions that the privacy program should answer at some point. And by making it a manual process that is actually more focused on gathering the data rather than analyzing the data is making a lot of companies sort of go into compromise that maybe is not the best solution for them. And I think if we'll talk about the trends, and now to your question, I think one of the things that the automation does, and I think it's very important for a lot of companies, is actually sort of shifting the, well, I would say the power or sort of, the priorities from the different technical teams that have other priorities. And for them, compliance is something that they need to do and nice to have sometimes, to the actual privacy professionals. So instead of constantly sort of going to your IT team and asking them for a list and understanding what kind of tools we're using, and then going back to them and asking them, okay, so why are we using this specific tool, and what kind of processing activities are they involved in, and what kind of data types are we sending to those different third parties, because I need to map this in my privacy program. By using those automations and the ability to discover those tools, especially with the email discovery that you mentioned, and our AI enrichment that we also do, where we provide a lot of information regarding data types and processing activities of each one of those vendors without the need to integrate into them, it actually gives the powers to the privacy professionals to be able to build a privacy program without being dependent on other stakeholders, or at least without creating them as a bottleneck, right? They're able to get the information, they're able to build a data source list, they're able to get the processing activities, they're able to see the worst case scenario in regards to the data types that they're moving around to those different vendors without talking to anybody. So even if or when the privacy program moves forward and they need to talk to those people, they can actually come with the data. And then the relationship or the conversation around compliance and privacy is not around, oh, this is what I don't know, but rather around, okay, this is what I know, and I need to understand if this is the right approach that we need to take as an organization, right? Or I would like to do a risk estimate on something that we do right now and understand if this is something that is good for our company, if it makes sense. Are we covering, do we have a mitigation plan for some of those risks? How do we reduce the risk surface eventually, right? Privacy risk surface for our company. And all of those are done only through automatic tools and scanning and discovery, because, well, when you involve the human factor, eventually it's always prone to mistakes and forgetting something and missing something, just because that's how we are, right? It's not something good or bad. This is just people.
Amazing, amazing. You touched on so many important points. How the fact that alleviating IT and really giving it to the folks that understand the risk and letting them handle it, and know when to involve the right humans, and letting the technology do some of the automation and redundant tasks, if you will. Taufiq, have you noticed some of these? You've been at your shop for a while. Have you seen some of these trends play out?
I have, yeah, and I don't have any concrete examples for you, but I've seen those trends play out. Like, I mean, if I could think of one, it's just we would just go to them and we would already have it done. So I don't know, but yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you, Taufiq, for being with us. We're very humbled to have you here. We're very happy to hear everything that you mentioned. Danny as well, thank you for your time. And everybody, who joined us. If you have any questions or any follow-ups that you'd like, feel free to reach out to us. Our website, MineOS.ai, you'll get all the detailed information. Again, thank you for joining us. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you, everybody.